Nearly 1 million people have died of drug overdose in the U.S. since 1999. Yet America is no closer to tackling the cause of the problem. In 2023, death rates topped 112,000 within a single year. Out of every 10 drug-related deaths, 7 are caused by opiates.
Today is the day that I saw my son dead. 4 years ago today, that is that day for me.
I can see what it's doing to me. I mean, it's deteriorated my health and my body tremendously almost overnight.
Do you know how many families I know who had to declare bankruptcy because they put their loved ones through treatment?
As addiction takes over, millions have looked for cheaper, black market alternatives to prescribed painkillers, like fentanyl.
So we're talking about, artificially made drugs in labs. And why are they made in labs? Because they're cheaper.
How did a drug so potent go from having a legitimate medical purpose to devastating communities across North America? The answer lies on a different continent.
China has the world's biggest chemical industry, the legal and, illegal.
China.
It's all coming out of China. We're losing thousands of people.
Particularly when it comes to fentanyl.
Fentanyl was first synthesized in 1960 by Belgian chemist Paul Janssen in what was seen as a huge achievement at the time.
Fentanyl was considered superior at that time because it goes into a person's brain really fast and then it wears off really fast. So if you are undergoing, say, an open heart surgery, the patient can get the drug as a painkiller and it will wear off really fast.
Commercial adoption came a decade later, but because of its potency, was hardly used outside hospital operating rooms.
It's up to 50 times stronger than heroin, and it's almost 100 times stronger than morphine. Only 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal depending on a person's body size, tolerance, and past usage. Plus, it's highly addictive.
Meanwhile, a quieter, more insidious problem was brewing. An addiction was growing in America for weaker opiate painkillers distributed by companies like Purdue Pharma and Johnson & Johnson, which flooded the market with the pills, despite being aware of its addictive quality.
The beginning of the fentanyl epidemic is a broader opioid epidemic that in the 1990s was caused by pharmaceutical companies who were aggressively and deceptively promoting the adoption of pills such as Oxycontin, other prescription opioids that they claim were not addictive. They claim that they would be available to treat not just intense pain during terminal illness like cancer, for example, but that essentially daily use would not cause addiction. That led to a very substantial rise in substance use disorder in opioids, unprecedented in the United States. But that did not cause the lethality. What caused the lethality was the arrival of fentanyl.
Patients would be prescribed high-dose opiates for painkillers that they eventually became addicted to. Once the prescription opioids ran out, easy-to-make black market drugs became the only way to fill the void. Those synthetic drugs, like fentanyl, are categorized as new psychoactive substances, or NPS, and they have become an extreme problem in much of the US and Canada.
So you are in such high state of euphoria that your body stops seeking oxygen. And that's when people start dying. So your body is in such great, state of bliss that that there is this sense in your body and brain that you don't need any more oxygen. And that's when they call it respiratory depression.
In 2013, an agent from the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration linked synthetic opiates found in the U.S. to a massive trafficking network involving up to 400,000 chemical companies operating out of China. We spoke to a reporter who investigated the China connection.
In 2018, I went undercover inside a Shanghai lab where they were making types of fentanyl and also other synthetic drugs like synthetic cannabinoids like K2 and spice. And I also infiltrated a huge company selling precursors in Wuhan called Yuancheng. And, it was an elaborate operation, and I pretended to be a trafficker and made up this whole story and met with these chemists and convinced them basically to take me into the lab. And I had a whole fictional backstory. I called myself Johnny Webster, and when I saw this lab, we drove out to the outskirts of Shanghai, and it kind of reminded me of like the Breaking Bad type of lab, or even just a college chemistry lab. It was small, and there weren't that many people, but they were producing these huge volumes of chemicals.
Westhoff says chemicals to make fentanyl are shipped from laboratories in China to organized crime groups in Mexico or Canada to be manufactured and pressed into prescription pills. Those pills are later trafficked over the border into the U.S.
So there are mainly three states, California, Texas, and Arizona. If the immigration authorities are to be believed, most of the illicit fentanyl is actually coming across official ports of entry, and it is being done by US citizens and not illegal immigrants.
Oftentimes they are hidden in cargo, in trailer trucks, sometimes in personal vehicles, and sometimes they are even flown by drones across the border.
The U.S. has taken steps in recent years to address the problem. In October 2017, former President Donald Trump declared the opioid crisis a public health emergency and unveiled an initiative to stop opioid abuse the following year. It was later made a domestic and foreign policy priority after Joe Biden took office in 2020. He signed 2 executive orders allowing his administration to sanction individuals and entities associated with the production and dissemination of fentanyl. 25 China-based firms and individuals were sanctioned as of late 2023. At the same time, federal regulators introduced new limits domestically on opioid prescriptions and increased focus on seizing fentanyl. Big pharmaceutical companies in the U.S. have had to pay over $25 billion in settlements to victims and families of the opioid crisis.
Hey, Mr. Sackler, tell me, would you give your kids or your grandkids Oxycontin? Would you? I beg of the Supreme Court, do not let this family stand under an umbrella made of our children's blood. They need to be held responsible for what they did. Payment is not justice.
China has also acknowledged its role in the U.S. crisis by placing all exports of fentanyl precursors under control in 2019.
那么中美之间的禁毒合作是其中一个重要的方面。据我所知的话，正像是说我们中方所表示的，在这一点上来说，这个中方一直是属于跟美国是愿意坦诚务实、深入的合作的。
Cooperation hit a roadblock amid growing geopolitical tensions over Taiwan in 2022.
美方要做的是反躬自省，加强国内处方药管控，强化对毒品危害宣传，减少国内毒品需求，而不是对别国污蔑抹黑、甩锅推责。
But joint efforts resumed nearly a year and a half later with the creation of a counter-narcotics working group.
中方对芬太尼对美国人民，尤其是青年人的毒害深表同情。我和拜登总统已同力建立禁毒工作组，进一步开展合作，协助美国应对毒品的滥用。
But have efforts been fruitful? Experts say that as controls on China strengthen, operations have simply relocated to nearby countries like India.
Like China, India is a major source of precursor chemicals for the illegal drug trade, for cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine. And there appears to have been connections made between Mexican cartels and Indian sellers of precursor chemicals. Those, just like in China, are pharmaceutical companies. They are brokers in very many chemicals.
India is already picking up some of the slack, so you can see that precursors are for sale on Indian websites, and they're starting to deal with the Mexican cartels as well. India has been even more reluctant to put the kind of controls in place that the US would like, even less so than China.
Cooperation between US and China authorities may be key to eradicating the flow of fentanyl across the globe. But are regulators overlooking another crucial strategy by failing to tackle misinformation?
Well, the good news is that younger people are declining their usage of illicit pills and powders and things like that. But the bad news is that the death toll is still as high as ever. In fact, it's still going up. And I think more and more of the drug supply keeps getting tainted. And people still don't realize there still isn't a widespread education campaign to teach people about how so many different drugs are tainted now. And just don't take any drugs from the black market that are in pill or in powder form without checking them first. There are good drug checking tests available, but it's dangerous out there.